Hearty shalom to you, Jeffrey Seif here. Super duper glad that you're out there. Together, we are in Acts chapter 27. If you've been going with me on the journey, I want to look in this particular go around, beginning in 38 and make my way to the end of the chapter. Paul is on a journey, and forgive me for sniffling a little bit. It's I just took some of that stuff to loosen up the mucus in the nostrils, and I got a big nose, so a lot of mucus up there. So you might recall Paul's on a journey. He has appealed to go to Rome, and the journey's been very precarious. And I noted recently, while going through Acts here, that life it gets precarious sometimes. Sometimes people come to faith, and the Reverend promises them it's going to be an easy journey, but really not so. There's challenges, and they're managing the situation. Paul has, as they're out there on the seas and the boat is taking a beating, Paul has a prophetic word that they're going to make it safely through, and that encourages them some. But it's a bare knuckle experience. You're just holding on for your life. And they're managing it in verse 38. When they had eaten enough, they began to lighten the ship, throwing the wheat into the sea. They're going to throw other things into the sea as well. I'm not a sailor. I live on land. I almost drowned in the Mediterranean, so I know how precarious these waters can be, and it gives me even more of an aversion for the sea. But they're professionals here, and if you're, they're on a ship, and they carry food staples and other goods to take care of themselves, plus to sell at different places. But they're just getting rid of everything they can. It's hard enough for that boat to stay afloat, and it's just about to break apart. We're told in 39, daylight came, and they didn't recognize the land, but noticed a bay, and then they want to make they're going to ground the boat. I get it, after being tossed around so much at sea, they're loosening stuff, they're getting rid of stuff, and they're going to make a beeline to get to the shore. I don't want to go through all the particulars of it, but they're going to wreck the boat entirely in the process of so doing. The boat is ground ashore. It really is beaten to pieces. It's not going to be salvaged, so it in effect is the end of the journey. We're told in verse 41, the bow struck fast and remained immovable, and the stern began to break up by the pounding of the waves. So it was over. Well, there's not only food product, well, not so much anymore, on the boat, and merchandise. There were soldiers on the boat. Paul was there with a centurion, and there were prisoners on the boat. And the plan of the soldiers, the centurion being but one, was to kill the prisoners so that none of them would escape by swimming away. Swimming is interesting. Most didn't know how to swim in antiquity. The Roman Navy didn't teach sailors how to swim, with the belief that if they didn't know how to swim, they'd be better sailors. There's no plan B. But some here, it was close enough to the shore where some would have been able to jump in and make their way there. There's driftwood and the like, the thing's breaking up. But and the soldiers were going to kill them. If you look in verse 43, there's a conjunction there, but, against the backdrop. And if we're killing prisoners, Paul's going to be one of them that's going to be killed. But the centurion, wanting to save Paul, kept them from carrying out their plan. Very interesting. Paul had endeared himself to this centurion. And I should say, by the way, that in Luke volume 2, aka Acts, centurions are painted in a good light. It's a centurion who previously is the first to acknowledge Jesus among the Gentiles earlier on. And he and Peter have a conversation, and he is going to listen to Peter and be saved, filled with the Holy Spirit, baptized, all of that. And here, Paul has interacted with the centurion, and it's a positive experience, to put it mildly, saved Paul's life. This man was a man of influence. He was a centurion. It's akin to being a captain. Soldiers respect rank, and a centurion is the highest rank that a common soldier can achieve. You're not born into money, nobility, you're a foot soldier, but you work your way up and you become a captain. And he here says, no, wait, no, guys, we're not going to do this. And even though there's no reason to think that those other soldiers were part of the same regiment as the centurion, nevertheless, he had influence. And he uses his influence for good. And that's the point that I want to accentuate here in all of this with you. With your life and your circumstances. This is Paul's life, or it was his life and his circumstance for a moment. But never mind him, let's talk about you. And never mind Paul, let's talk about the centurion. Let's talk about using influence for positive purposes in a way that contributes to the advancement of the kingdom's purposes. Certainly keeping Paul alive was advancing kingdom's purposes. And here the centurion just uses his influence. Sometimes when people step up and step in, it makes all the difference in the world. And maybe there's circumstances in your life where you can step up and use your influence. Could be as a mother, could be as a secretary, could be as a soldier, as a bookkeeper, as a police officer, as a leader in a congregation, could be as a mother-in-law, as a father-in-law, could be as a daughter-in-law. I don't know, but I know that those who have influence in webs of relationships use them for positive purposes. And I think it's important to do that. You know, people say, oh, Lord, if you could only make me a Joel Osteen, or if you could only make me on television or this, or, you know, make me a pastor of a mega church or something, then I could really take care of business for you. Listen, the game is played by us simply just using influence wherever we are, whoever we are. You know, it's if you're driving and you see a redwood tree, a sequoia tree, you go, wow, that's big, it gets my attention. But for every one of those, there's a zillion smaller trees that you're not even going to look at twice. The reality is, however, is that God gets utility out of all of these organic instruments in the ecosystem that are doing business with photosynthesis and providing, you know, shade for owls or whatever. I mean, everything has a purpose. And we are who we are, and we got to just use our influence wherever we are. Well, we're told here the centurion did this to good effect, and the net result is that they all were saved, and they were all brought to land safely. Well, hope this contributes a little something to you. God bless. Let's do it again later. Ciao.